What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another Chance Encounter.
Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. We're seeing more properties like this being built in front of a house that's going to be torn down soon.
I understand that there are power lines that are getting kind of close.
What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg, and that there is a commercial real estate building.
Today, I'm joined with Jantzen Young. How are you doing today, Jantzen?
I'm doing great. How are you, Dan?
I'm fantastic. After meeting you in Phoenix, has been great. But I got some great news for you, Jansen. Today, I don't know if you know this, but we are joined by my very favorite member of the audience. And why is my favorite audience member here? It's because this is a chance encounter where I interview commercial real estate players. That means deal sponsors, syndicators, investors, buyers, sellers, all that kind of stuff. And you may ask, why would you do that? And the answer is, if you've ever heard of an off-market deal, it's also called private deals, the kind you're not allowed to talk about, they're called 506B deals. You might know that you need documentation of your prior substantive relationship, or else the SEC will get ants in its pants, totally ruin the show, and nobody wants that. So I have people on here find out level of sophistication, appetite for risk, all that kind of stuff. And the benefit to you is you will learn not only how to effectively communicate on the subject of commercial real estate deals and the teams that do them, but you'll also understand how my guest fits into those deals. But before we get too serious about deals and real estate, Jansen, do you want to say a thing or two about yourself?
Hi, guys. So first of all, Dan, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. We had a chance encounter at a real estate meetup, and I do land notes, and I am absolutely over the moon excited to talk to you guys about that today.
Sweet, sweet. And so the first segment that we have is about motivation. But before that, I got to say, but wait, check your rate. Jansen, I don't know if you can do this or not, but maybe you can see through the camera and into the user's device down there. There might be this hideous subscribe button, and maybe they should, okay, it's a silly joke, but I do it in every episode because you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
That's right.
But the 5 distinct motivations. By this point, I've spoken to at least 1,000 different commercial real estate players, and everybody has their own unique why. But I found that not only do they fit pretty neatly into these 5 categories, but it's really important for people in real estate to know what those motivations are, because these deals take months to close, they take years to go full cycle. And so
Yeah.
you need to know why somebody isn't going to throw in the towel. So the 5 different motivations. The first one is preservation of purchasing power. What's that? Well, some people are job optional, or they don't need a job at all. And the way that they pay their bills is from the proceeds of ownership. They have a portfolio of assets, and those profits are how they pay their bills. And if you're in that situation, you might ask, well, why go through the hassle of making another acquisition? Well, there are a couple scenarios that are really obvious for that. One of them is if inflation is rearing its ugly head, that's going to eat away from the purchasing power of your cash flow. So it's going to be time to make another acquisition. The other situation is if there's a serious distress in the property or an asset crash, you can buy at a steep discount. And that's the other time it's going to make sense if you're in that situation. Now, that's a little bit further in the real estate journey than I'm at personally. What I'm up to is trading time directly for wealth. I've got a background in technology. Specifically, it was credit card transactions online through different CRMs and mass emailing, sending out 5 million emails a month, and helping different deal sponsors work with that. I was working for a guy in Ohio who was flipping 10 houses a month like clockwork for years before he ended up hiring me. And as I was watching him make money hand over fist, and I was no slouch myself, I was noticing that my tax burden was really, really high, and he was doing a whole lot better than I was. So I got to thinking, how can I pivot to where I'm getting rewarded not just in salary, but more accurately in deployed capital, aka equity? So that's what I'm doing. And a lot of youngsters, that's a little bit too subtle for them. They're not really on board with anything like that. Their motivation's a bit simpler. Maybe they want to hustle like crazy right now and retire early, or they just want to be able to control their own schedule and live on their own terms. So work fewer months per year, fewer weeks per month, whatever it is, which is really great. But the fun thing about this motivation is a lot of people who choose this one, they think that that's the hidden motivation that everybody has that they just don't want to admit to. But I assure you that is not the case. Some people are just plain fueled by ambition. They want to buy
Aw.
an entire hometown. They want to have those huge buildings with their names on them. And they want to make sure that their great grandchildren never have to hold a day job. And that's great to have people like that on your team, even though it's vilified in some circles. But the reason why it's great to have on your team, because they're going to hustle into their 90s. And so
Yeah.
you know they're just not going to throw in that towel. Just like the last group, though. But instead of being focused on their own generational wealth, their own portfolio, their great grandchildren and whatnot, these guys have picked a sector of society. Maybe it's animals, maybe it's the environment. Regardless of what it is, there's a financial component to making a really big impact on the world, and they figured that out, and that's why they're using commercial real estate as their wealth building vehicle. So, Jantzen, of the 5 different motivations there, what combination of them do you think describes you best?
I mean, I don't think I've ever seen this put together so well. So I'm a hybrid. So I really started this journey because I fell into the fast track to retirement. My goal was to retire in my 30s, and thank goodness my husband and I were both able to do that. So now I actually had this kind of existential crisis last year. I'm like, what the heck am I still working so hard for? And my personal why is that for whatever reason that I do not understand, I feel like I've been imbued with some incredible skills and talents and charisma. And I want to make sure that on my deathbed, I can look my maker in the face and say, I used every ounce of it to improve your universe. So I'm going to have to say, help people who need it. That's really what drives me now.
I love that answer. And of course, whenever we're talking about motivation, we run the risk of seeming a little bit too optimistic. And the fact is, there are risks involved in every business.
Yeah.
Real estate's no different. It's as mature an industry as there is. But if you've ever been involved in a 506B deal, whoever the securities attorney in the mix was, and there really should have been one. If there isn't one, then you should run, not walk, because the SEC will definitely spoil your party if they find out about it.
Yeah.
But the securities attorney should have insisted that everybody fills out this financial questionnaire, suitability questionnaire, filled with these really invasive questions. And when I was going through it for these investments, the tolerance for risk assessment questions stood out as something I thought it didn't really serve any utility the way that they phrase it. So I made my own version that I think is much more revealing. It's a fill in the blanks question. There are many popular investment asset classes, but I think blank is too risky. So Jansen, it can be inside real estate, outside real estate. What's too risky for you?
That's a really interesting one. So personally, I have to say cryptocurrency, and that's just for me. I know it's an amazing investment class. I've seen a lot of people do really well in it, but I come from a very slow and steady approach to wealth. Now, at the same time, I think it's ridiculous to completely ignore this amazing asset class. So I do hold some Bitcoin, some Ethereum, but it's not something I'm actively trading, and it's certainly not the bulk of my wealth.
I love that answer. I love that answer because fundamentally, Bitcoin, any of those cryptos, it's an appreciation move.
Yeah.
Full stop. You know, like
Yeah.
there's no cash flow for owning, so there's no mitigation of the risk of downside, but in the form of you're getting cash out as it goes. So if you're going to be in commercial real estate, you need to be able to understand a few more plays. So I love the answer at crypto.
Yeah.
But that brings me to the favorite deal metrics. And I got to admit, when I first started doing these chance encounters, I didn't want to include this sort of question because I was aware some people in this industry, they're more like the public relations or the marketing, you know, the front of house sort of role. And they're not really the spreadsheet jockeys who love to be up to their eyeballs in these different numbers. And so even though that's the case, that some of these people aren't really the numbers people, everybody's going to pick a few different metrics as to tell the tale on if they should continue to deep dive and pursue that particular deal. And for anybody in the audience who's only listening and not reading, or sorry, not reading, I'm sitting here thinking about how you use, sign language, and I also put the captions down here, but
Yes.
Exactly. But whenever I'm doing this, just in case somebody's only listening, I read out each of them and hopefully you can give me the top two, top three, or something like that of them. So the list is cash on cash, IRR, cost per door, net operating income, NOI, the going in cap rate, which is really talking about the difference between the cap rate you're buying at versus what's standard for where you're buying. Then there's the loan interest rate, which can sometimes be because you're assuming the loan or just because it dictates, it's based on your credit and your down payment. The occupancy or the vacancy, those are inverse but the same thing. The average income where the property is located, the amortization period of the loan, the difference between the market versus the in-place rents on the property, the population growth where the property is located, the sponsor record, which is how many deals have gone full cycle and how many deals are on the go right now. I have the waterfall, split, or exit strategy, which answers the question of what's going to happen after your capital has been returned. And then I have DSCR, which is debt service coverage ratio, which means how much of the money is going out the door before, like straight out of revenue, just in the form of loans and whatnot. Now, of course, there are some other metrics, and underwriters are going to say, "What are you talking about?" They're all important, but what are the headliners for you, Jantzen?
Okay, so because my background is all in debt, so like I do just notes secured by vacant land, it's never going to be occupied. There is the average income is nice, but it's really more borrower specific. So rents are completely irrelevant to me. So because I deal with such a simple asset class, to me, it's loan interest, cash on cash return. That's all I care about.
I love that answer. I love that answer. I'm eating it up like a delicious subscribe sandwich. It's very subtle, I know, but it tells
Yes.
me it's time to bring out the Dan Does Deals Commercial Core Competency Cube with the 6 different roles in a commercial real estate deal. And if you're looking at this and going like, hey, I bet you that'll really help me effectively communicate on the subject of commercial real estate deals and the teams that are on it, you're absolutely right. And the good news is it's completely free. If you go to dandoesdeals.com, you can download a copy of this. And like a complete dummy, I committed the cardinal sin of marketing, which is you never give away your freebie without asking for some sort of contact information.
Ooh.
But I really do think that people's future in commercial real estate hinges on the ability to effectively communicate what everybody's up to, what they're responsible for. And so that's why I want you to print this out and try it out. And so in every episode, I go through all 6 sides. And then that way you also understand how my guest fits into commercial real estate deals. And of course, you're doing notes, so it's probably going to be simplified, but I'll go through these anyway.
I love it.
The first one I want to talk about is the repositioner. That's the acquisitions person. They're doing a whole bunch of paperwork, looking at a whole whack of different deals. And what are they doing with that paperwork? Well, the first thing, the fancy word is underwriting. They're doing the math. They're figuring out, first of all, is this property actually even making the amount of money that the seller/broker claims it is? Because okay, so the repositioner's job is to find some upside, basically make the property more profitable than it was before. And one of the more peculiar ways that they can pull that off is by having a vast network of financiers and doing those financier relations with the banks, the lenders, the investors, and whatnot. Financiers are people who only deal with paper and money, so they are not going to be on a GP team. They're only going to be interacting with the GP team, but they're not going to be dealing with residents or anything like that. But the reason why you have to have a vast network of financiers as a repositioner is because if you can secure a more advantageous loan, the property is automatically more profitable, just like that. So that's why that's one key feature of what repositioners do. But the next place the repositioner is going to look is operations. They're going to stop those Benjamins from going down the toilet. But of course, there's more to operations than just unclogging toilets, collecting rent, mowing lawns, maybe even shoveling snow in my case. The thing that I contribute to operations or asset management, even though the properties that I tend to focus on are 100 units or more, so there's a good chance you're going to be outsourcing your property management to a third party. The things I can contribute are the web-based applications, the automations and whatnot. But the bigger one is because you have to realize the enemy in this industry is vacancy. Empty units are what kill deals. And even if you are outsourcing the property management, if you've got a vacancy problem, somebody on the GP team needs to have some serious marketing chops so you can get those units filled. And that's one thing I supply when I'm on a GP team. But there's only so much you can do on operations. There's only so much wiggle room. So the next place repositioners frequently look is to get a contractor team involved to do a value add. In other words, you're making the property nicer so that the next residents will be happy to pay more in rent than the previous one. And that way you've got some baked in upside. But if only it were that simple. You can go ahead and spend endless amounts of money on contractors. You could go ahead and gold plate the toilets. You're not going to get a return on the investment. And then if you're like me, I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm from the internet. So that means I need locals. I need boots on the ground, somebody who can keep an eye on the contractors and the operations, make sure they're not sloughing the details and photographs and details that they're telling. And you need to have somebody who can be there in an hour or two. And categorically, that's not going to be me, because I'd still be stuck at an airport in an hour or two. So the business really depends on having somebody nearby. Now, let's do a little bit of a hypothetical. Let's say you are going to become a repositioner and you get this idea because let's say you're an engineer or you're an attorney or you're a physician, something like that. And you say, hey, I know how to buy a house. You need the down payment and then you get a loan for the rest. What if my circle of friends, we all put in, 100K each or something like that, and we take over that 350 unit apartment complex that's just down the road. So you turn around to the financier and say, hey, I got this property that I really want to buy. It's 350 units. It's tens of millions of dollars. You don't have, I don't know, tens of millions of dollars you want to lend us, do you? Well, the one thing the financier is going to ask about that I haven't mentioned yet, I want you to pay real close attention to, especially if you're in some sort of mentorship or guru program, because I find they tend to really gloss over this next question. The financiers are going to ask, who's your sponsor? Who's the KP? Who's the key principal? What's that all about? To be eligible for a commercial real estate loan, somebody in the fold has to already own a similar asset, because you need to be able to prove you're not going to run the property into the ground, because why would they lend you the money in that case? And so somebody in the fold has to already own a similar asset. You also need to provide a certain amount of liquidity. And then among the GP team, you need a balance sheet of at least the amount of the loan. But if you have all those pieces, you got yourself a commercial real estate deal. Now, Jantzen, you focus on notes, so like I'm sure you have to be aware of the teams to go. It's like, okay, like, are these guys a bunch of yahoos? Are they actually going to be able to pay me back? But I don't want to put words in your mouth. How do you fit in? How do you describe your role?
Yeah, so listening to you do this amazing recap of traditional commercial real estate, I'm like, thank God I don't do that. It is so complicated.
Yep.
Okay, so let me just run through it really quickly. So, in terms of a repositioner, that is my entire job. I love analyzing deals. And when I first got into real estate, I was like, if that's a part that I love, and I don't like managing contractors, I don't like arguing with tenants about the rent being late or where do they send it. I didn't enjoy any of that. I don't even enjoy the rehab, which is what a lot of people do. They get a kick out of seeing something old become new. And I'm like, does it cash flow? Like, that's all I want to know. And so once I figured out the part of real estate that I absolutely loved, I decided analysis is what I want, and that's all I want to focus on. So fortunately, when we're doing real estate notes, it is all about the numbers. It is about what is the unpaid balance, how much interest rate can we earn on this deal, and is there an opportunity to arbitrage? Meaning, can I get the note at a yield, let's say 12%, and then borrow the money cheaper at say 10 or 9 or 8%, and then make my money on the spread. So as long as I can make numbers work, and it's funny you said, for people who don't love to live in spreadsheets, I'm like, that's me. I like me and Google Sheets, like we are one.
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
mm-hmm.
So in terms of the repositioner, that's really where I live. Operations is relatively simple. In terms of servicing notes, we work with third-party servicers to get all of that done. It's a lot of documentation. Every conversation, every payment, every inquiry needs to be tracked for compliance purposes. And so we partner with third parties who are excellent at that work, because I'm not excellent at it. I shouldn't be doing it. And I don't enjoy it. In terms of contractors, throw them right out the door. We don't use them. In terms of locals and having boots on the ground, another reason why I got into notes, particularly notes secured by vacant land,
Mm-hmm.
is that as long as I have access to Google Earth, I can check out what's going on with that property. So if we ever have to take back a property, unfortunately through foreclosure or some other means where they just give us the deed because they don't want to go through that arduous process, all I have to do is hop on Google Earth, check out the lot, make sure everything still looks good, and get a local agent to put a for sale sign on it.
Mhm.
So really, really easy to manage from my perspective. And then in terms of having a sponsor and financiers, the way that our loan is structured, the way that our fund is structured, we don't have to go out and get debt. The asset that we have is already debt. So we're really looking for equity partners who want equity directly into the deal. I'm looking for additional people to become a bank with me rather than all of us pooling our money, becoming equity partners, and then we have to go and give the bank money and make them rich.
I love that answer. I love that answer. And that brings me to the buy box. And, this might still
Yeah.
be a little bit wiggly, but when real estate people are asking, hey, what you looking for? What's your ideal property? What's your buy box? We're generally asking for three main things. First one's geography. Where is it? Which state? Which county? Possibly even which neighborhood. Okay. For it to be a good idea, that's going to absolutely matter. Second one's going to be size. Most of my guests on this show are in multifamily, which is apartment complex investing. And the way you define the size of an apartment complex is by the number of apartment units. And the reason why it's important to know is because the type of team that's going to take over a 10 or 15 unit apartment complex is going to be fundamentally different from one that's taking over 150,
Oh,
350
yeah.
unit apartment complexes. So that's very important. But of course, there are other types of real estate that go off of square footage. But the reason why people like multifamily in the first place is because you're mitigating your risk. You're not depending on a single tenant that if they stop paying, then all of those bills have zero revenue to offset them. Instead, you have, 99 out of 100 or something like that. So that size definitely matters. But the third one is usually called class. I don't like the term because that makes it sound like it's only one thing when it's actually two. So I like to call it desirability and split it up into condition and area. And if you're talking about condition, we're talking about how beat up is the building, what sort of luxuries and amenities are there? Like, is it a really no frills sort of place, or is it a fantastic place to be? How old is it? What state of repair? So that's the condition. And when you're talking about area, if you're talking about some sort of residential like multifamily, then the school districts are going to be really, really important.
Oh, yeah.
But every single type of real estate, the crime rate where the property is located is going to be important. And then, of course, there's that old trope that brokers like to say of location, location, location. I don't like that saying just simply because I don't think it's very informative. And what I think they really mean is traffic, traffic, traffic. In other words,
Mm,
if a gazillion people are passing by that property every single day, is going to be way more desirable than one that has fewer people. But
right.
both the area and the condition are ranked the same way as in grade school, where you have A plus at the top, and then A minus, and then B plus, and so on. So, Jansen, maybe you can fill in the blanks of your buy box as far as those
Yeah.
notes. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So all the notes that we buy, like I said, are secured by vacant land only.
Mhm.
So in terms of geography, we like to buy in what I call the American smile. So anywhere from the Carolinas down to Florida, across Texas, up to California, Nevada, that area. So the nice, sunny, happy places in our American smile there. In terms of size, we're pretty agnostic. We do like to stay under about 50 acres. So we'll buy three kinds of lots, either infill lots. So that's your typical subdivision. Houses are everywhere. There's just a few lots that never got built. We have outskirts. So maybe 30 to 45 minutes from city center, somewhere 1 to 5 acres in size. Generally, those are used for second homes, retirement properties, things like that. Um, and then actually our best sellers are what we call recreational land. So that's 45 minutes to an hour and a half away from city center. And we're looking anywhere from 10 to 20, sometimes even 50 acres. And that could be used for agriculture, like little ranchettes, get a couple horses out there, some goats, and go homesteading. My doomsday preppers are really great buyers for that. But yeah, we love to buy property in those different sizes.
Mhm.
And then in terms of class and condition, land is a little bit different. So I would say the things that I don't buy are landlocked properties. Legally, no one can deny you access to your property, but if it isn't already there, the people who own the properties around you can make it a little difficult. So we don't go down that path. We won't take a loan on a property like that. But generally speaking, if there is road access and there is water access and there's electricity access, man, you are exactly the lot that we want to service and help regular, typical Americans find the dream of land ownership.
I love that answer. And so let's talk about people then. So
Yeah.
Jason already mentioned a little bit about it, but my favorite thing about commercial real estate is that because there are these multiple roles, nobody's going to be all of the sides of that cube for any meaningful amount of time. You can vertically integrate and have them in house with multiple people, but you're going to bear down on one or two of the sides and really focus on those and focus on your strengths. But at the same time, because it's a team sport, everybody is really eager to make referrals, introduce introductions, and all that sort of thing. But because we have our own unique skill sets, we're honestly better suited to help some people more than others. These days, I'm still eager to meet more and more sponsors and KPs just because of my skill set with automation and the mass marketing, content creation, all that kind of ridiculousness. That's something that I can do where a normal repositioner or local, they really need grunts who can put in 80 to 120 hours a week, and that's how they're at their most effective. But if I'm going to make a really big difference to somebody's bottom line, that's not really it. Now, of course, financiers, everybody's always eager to get more capital because that's what we're in the business of, is deploying capital and getting some yield on it. But Jantzen, if you have any 506B deals going on, which I don't think you really syndicate your notes, I'm pretty sure anyway, but you
I
can fill
do
that in. But if you
actually.
do have a 506B deal, don't mention it specifically, especially in the same breath of asking for investors or financiers. But
Exactly.
exactly. But who's out there that you can help disproportionately more?
Yeah, so people who are looking to branch out into the note space, like that's definitely something that I'm interested in. Even syndicators who are working with traditional banks and their loans are running into trouble. So generally speaking, we like to stay in the note business, but in terms of consulting, oh my goodness, there's so many creative things that banks are willing to do, especially in this tumultuous time where we don't know what's happening with interest rates. And there we see a large glut of loans that are suddenly coming due. Banks don't want those bad loans on their books either.
Mhm.
So both of us are in a situation where some really interesting and creative negotiations can take place. Um, some things might have to happen behind the scenes just because their banks are heavily regulated, but opportunities definitely exist in the private sector to assume some of those loans and help bring them back to life.
I love that. And so people in the audience must be thinking, how on earth do I reach out? And I'm going to sandbag that by talking how to reach out to me. I'm lucky because I got this super duper distinct last name, and it makes me really easy to find on LinkedIn, which is the social media platform where I spend most of my time. Of course, if you check out Amazon, you can find some of my books on the different subjects, business related, attention to detail, real estate itself, and syndication. But if you have your phone handy, you can scan this QR code, and that brings you to the FAQs page of 506BME, which is the platform where the goal was really to destroy plausible deniability. If somebody says that they publicly solicited you, I help you with the IT to make sure that you've got that documented substantive relationship. And then even if you drop your laptop into the bathtub and the SEC audits you, you're not without that documentation to show that you knew their level of sophistication, appetite for risk, core competencies as they relate to commercial real estate deals and all that kind of
Love it.
mouthful of words. But Jansen, if people are sitting there saying, "Hey, I really need to talk to you," social media, website, email, phone, what are the best ways to reach out?
Oh, no, absolutely. You can hit me up right down here, flippingwithoutrehab.com. And in fact, if you go to flippingwithoutrehab.com/gift, just for listening today, I'll give you a checklist of how I analyze any real estate note. So you don't have to start out with $1 million to get started in this business. It could be as simple as 5,000 bucks and hopping online to find a note. It doesn't have to be from me, but I'm telling you, there's a lot more people that should be looking into this business for steady cash flow and stability in your income.
All right, I love it. And so that brings me to the last part. It's actually not for you, Jensen. It's my public service announcement for you in the audience. If you've been watching this episode and you've been experiencing like searing pains in your eyeballs, like migraine, like I'm really confident it's because of the downright hideous subscribe button that's right there. And you can get rid of it for free. You just click on the thing, it just goes away. And full disclosure, I want people to click on it because if enough people do, then YouTube will actually start to pay for these videos instead of me. And I think that would be amazing. The trade-off to you, just so we're clear, my videos may show up on your list of suggestions, but quite frankly, you can go ahead and ignore those suggestions because I just really appreciate the fact that you spent this time with me. Just like Jansen, I appreciate you joining. This has been fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute blast.
Awesome. Thanks. Hey there, are you interested in commercial real estate deals? Would you like to build your network of investors and deal sponsors? Well, the best thing I can do for you is have you appear on a chance encounter interview as featured on dandoesdeals.com. You may know me from 506B or as a top commercial real estate voice on LinkedIn. And if I had to think of the top factors in your success in commercial real estate, my top two would be your network and your ability to effectively explain how deals work with effective communication. The 15-minute chance encounter format, it checks both of those boxes, and they ensure that you can share your private deals with me without the SEC calling it a public solicitation. So hop onto LinkedIn. You can see my name is over here, Dan Friedenberg, and search for my name. And the best way to reach me and book that is to message me through LinkedIn. And don't worry, it doesn't matter if you decided to enter this space just last week or 2 weeks ago, or if it was decades ago. It'll be fun and easy to look good. We're just asking multiple choice questions based on your core competencies you look to contribute, your level of sophistication, all that kind of stuff. So I hope to hear from you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye. Make sure you 506B me. Any syndicators, make sure you 506B me. Hi. Oh, hey, yeah, here's my code. You got your QR code scanner? Okay, yeah, oh yeah, just hold it right in the square there. Okay, cool. And now you hit open in browser.
Okay.
Okay. Are you already logged into 506BME?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so there's my video. So now I'm already on your watch list. So when you get back to your hotel, you can find out what my core competencies are and my level of sophistication. Sound good?
Yeah.
I love your hat. Real estate's a scam. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
506BME, everybody.